We are about to enter sacred time. We're about to make this time and this place sacred by our presence and our intention. Please turn off or silence your cell phones. I'd like to introduce the congregation to Wiley Beveridge, who is here with his husband, Robbie, and they will be, they're here full-time for at least a year, and you'll be seeing him behind the piano. So, welcome. So, let's hear his first rendition for our prelude.
You are welcome here. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. So open your heart and listen. So open your heart and listen. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. So open your heart and listen, listen. So open your heart and listen. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. You are welcome.
Thank you, Wiley. Wiley is a singer-songwriter, so we don't just get the piano player, we get the singer. So thank you, dear. Okay, good afternoon again, and welcome to the Lake Chapala Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. As I said, I'm Devorah Kelley, and I will be standing in for Ted today as the service associate. Greg Custer will be sharing our message. Greg has lived in Ajijic since 2015, has worked in the international tourism marketing for over 40 years, and he's only 50. He currently serves on the Lake Chapala Society board and operates weekly walking tours of Ajijic. So if you're new to Ajijic or fairly new, you might want to talk to Greg afterwards. We are delighted to gather with each one of you today, longtime friends and newcomers alike. Whether you have come seeking community, reflection, or renewal, may this time together offer you a sense of peace, belonging, and spiritual nourishment. Our opening words this afternoon are by George Kimmick Beach. Everything begins on the verge of awareness. The dawn is not, and then is. Sleep is, and then is not. In between is the awakening. The passage of thin light between breaks open the day. The passage of thin sound between flows into the day. Too soon, the rumbling of traffic swells, the day glares. Let the soft haze hang across the narrow moment of morning. Wait upon that narrow moment, the first awareness of being in between. Live days and seasons on the thin edge of dawn. In praise that every single thing begins now. Okay. Okay, if you're new and would like to receive our newsletter and other emails, please talk to a member of the Welcome team or write to us at lcuuf.org. Would members of the Welcome team, and it's growing, please stand up. And we're missing a few today. Thank you for your service. So I want to take a moment to extend a very warm welcome to anyone who's visiting with us today, whether it's for the first time or if you're a snowbird and have been away for a while and are recently back, let us know. As we pass the mic, and Tim will pass the mic, I invite you to say your name and tell us where you're from. If you're on Zoom, please introduce yourself in the chat, and the chat box, and it will be read aloud here in the fellowship. But we'll start with those of you in the room. Are there any visitors or people returning today?
It's a delight to be back, really. Hi, Susie. This is my 10th year in Lakeside as a snowbird from Montreal. I'm also third generation UU. Isn't that amazing?
Thank you, Carol. Welcome. Anybody else?
My name's Al Patey. I live in Victoria, and I was trying to get out of it, so I'll sell my house and come back here because it's a neat place.
And I'm Barb Peterson. I've been gone for about 5 months and brought my friend Al to come and check out Mexico. So.
Kate, do we have it? Oh, yes. The chocolate lady.
Hello, I'm not new, but the chocolate is this year. And I like to tell you that I will do 2-3 Sundays before Valentine's Day. It's 100% organic, 72% cacao organic casip chocolate, which is from Chiapas. That's my ingredient, and fresh fruit. So nothing bad for you. And I keep my weight down with my chocolates too.
That's a great selling point. Okay. Well, welcome to all visitors, members, people returning, people selling chocolate, the choir, everybody. You're as our opening song said, you are welcome here. So here at LCUUF, each week offers something different. If those of you that have been coming for a while, you recognize that we don't have a set thing that we do other than this beginning part and some of our ritual, but the presentations are different every time, depending on who's up here. So we get reflections from our minister, Reverend Matt Alspa. We get guest speakers, and we have members who sometimes stand up here and share our story. We warmly invite you all to return and journey with us through this ever-unfolding landscape of thought, spirit, and belief. Our chalice lighting words, and Tim's going to light our chalice. The words today are by Eric A. Heller Wagner. Blessed is the fire that burns deep in the soul. It is the flame of the human spirit touched into being by the mystery of life. It is the fire of reason, the fire of compassion, the fire of justice, the fire of faith. It is the fire of love burning deep in the human heart, the divine glow in every life. Sometimes shake it. Yeah. Okay. Wiley's going to give us the opening note. We're going to sing these words together. Okay? Each week we come together to lament with, celebrate with, and care for one another in our beloved community. Love is not only at the center of our UU values, it's the opening that invites us to lament, to celebrate, and care for each other as we briefly share our personal joys, sorrows, and milestones. There's power in the sharing as we hold each other in community. Just a sentence or two is enough. We will start with the folks in the room and give those on Zoom a chance to type their joys and sorrows into the chat to be read aloud. As the mic is passed, please share your sorrows, whatever you're maybe holding that's in need of our healing and caring thoughts, and or your joys, whatever you may be celebrating, whatever evokes a feeling of joy, peace, or gladness. Are there any joys and or sorrows that people would like to share in the room?
Hello, I'm Teresa, and I have a joy that Linda Jessen is still fine. However, she's not here because her flight was canceled due to a big snowstorm. So we're hoping she arrives soon. And my other joy is Fred and Mardell are expected this week. So we're looking forward to that.
I'm Joan Franklin. My joy is I'm participating in the citywide art walk in 2 weeks. It's from Friday, February 6th through Sunday the 8th. There's 82 artists in Lakeside altogether, and I'm going to be with 2 other watercolor painters in Upper Floresta. So come stop by if you can.
Thank you. I'm Tom. My sorrow is the horrendous repression taking place in my country. My joy is the people are mobilizing.
Wiley, this is impossible to do in 2 sentences, but I'll do it anyway. We left here March last year, planning on returning in a couple months. We didn't come back till December. Many things happened, but I had cervical fusion that wrecked my voice. I mean, it was, and it's not permanent, but he said, the surgeon said it's a long recovery. The fact that I can sing today, even though it's kind of low for me, I'm a tenor, I'm just thrilled. I'm really, really happy.
So I'm echoing Tom's plight, and for me it's a little personal because a friend of mine, Gerardo Ramos, who some of you may remember, who played flute for us in the other building and also gave a few presentations, has been living in St. Paul, but because of the stuff that's going on up in there, has decided to return to Mexico. And so there's a mix of joy and sorrow in that. He's also looking for relatively low-cost housing, shared situation, or anything like that. So if any of you might have a possibility for him, that we might get him into into this area rather than Guadalajara or someplace far away, that would be wonderful. Let me know.
My name is Lynn, and I have a sorrow and a joy too. My sorrow is that longtime members, they were snowbirds here, Ron and Ann Gilbert, and Ron finally passed away from his cancer a few weeks ago, and they're having his celebration of life up north in Pennsylvania on the 31st, and my joy is that my friend Cheryl and I were able to spend a week with his widow, just kind of offering comfort and letting her know that we all remember her from here.
Hi, I'm Sandy. I have a joy and a sorrow. My joy is that I've never been, ever in my life, been so proud to be Canadian as I was when I listened to Mark Carney's speech, the whole thing. It was amazing. my sorrow, and I don't know if I'm sort of low, behind the 8 ball on this one, but I don't know if the people realize or know that the man who ran and owned Fresh Market, yeah, maybe you heard this last week, I don't know, but he was abducted and murdered.
Well, I have a joy. So most of us know Paula because she's one of the driving forces behind the scenes a lot. But today is her birthday, and it's a very special birthday. So can we sing Happy Birthday? Sorry, Paula. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Paula. Happy birthday to you. I did warn her I was going to do that. So I have another joy, and it's a very brief one. So as the newly elected board president, I was very pleased to be at the board retreat this past Friday at Matt's house. And there's some exciting things coming down the pike, which we will totally let everyone know once we have everything sorted out. But it was a joy to be with the group who are the leaders of this fellowship in a very congenial, fun way. So that's my joy. Are there any joys or sorrows to be shared this afternoon, Kate?
Yes, we have quite a few. From Colleen Beery, for the brave protesters in Minneapolis. Prayers that our Congress and the Supreme Court handcuff ICE and the DHS. From Joyce Kinnear, concerns from Joyce and Scott. 1, thoughts for our daughter Amy, so stressed and anxious about what is happening in the U.S. 2, my mom as she moves from her home to a condo near her family. And 3, Scott as he undergoes surgery on Thursday. From Dee Dee and Larry, great sadness for the loss of another U.S. citizen shot in Minneapolis. From Roy and David want to say prayers for the family and friends of Stevie, Stephanie, Joelle Robinson, longtime friend in South Carolina, who passed by himself and was not discovered for 6 days. He was only 55. One from Sharon Thompson Wilson, without details. From Julie, sorrow for Minnesota. For Mike Blanco, echoing all of the previous thoughts, and from Sharon Thompson here, Steve has really taken a very strong decline into the challenges of Lewy body dementia, shockingly so. Please offer your love for his gentle path, and thank you to all of you who have offered him, and mostly me, have offered me love and kindness and fun to keep me going. Is that it? Is there any more? That's all.
As we light the candle from our care team, may its steady glow hold space for all that has been spoken here and all that remains unspoken, each joy, each sorrow embraced in the silent stillness of this sacred moment. Let's share a moment of silence as we hold all of that in our hearts. Kate, I'm going off script. Because we didn't put it in this week's script, and I've been getting feedback that people really appreciate it. So I invite everyone to take a moment, and stand if you're willing and able, and greet the people around you with a brief hello, good to see you, glad you're here, who are you? So we'll just take a moment, and I'll ring the chime to bring us back. But take a moment to greet people around you. Okay. I don't know if when you're in the midst of it, if you can actually hear the burbling of joy that comes up here. That's amazing. Thank you all for participating. So that was that, and now we move on to the work of our fellowship. Takes our time, our talent, and our treasure. Our financial offering today helps to sustain the work of this congregation. It helps to make it a place where all voices can be heard, where truth can be spoken without fear, where vulnerability is met with compassion. We give in gratitude for this beloved community and with hopes for a world where more voices can speak their truth and be safe. As we pass the baskets, if you're new here today or you're struggling to hold things together, please let the basket pass you by. Your presence is gift enough for us. The morning offering will now be taken and gratefully received. Please know that each of the 6 charitable organizations here at Lakeside twice a year receive monies collected at our service. For January, we'll be highlighting Niñas Sabias, and the description is on the monitor. And I just have to say, Paula and I got to visit one of the classrooms in Niñas Sabias, and it's amazing the work that they are doing with these young girls who are 6th grade age, 11, 12. So give generously, it's a great cause. As we receive these gifts, may we remember the abundant blessings we have received. May we use these gifts to foster love and justice in the world. And boy, does the world need it now. So our opening hymn is We Laugh, We Cry. Please rise in body and or in spirit and join us singing verses 1 and 4. And Wiley's going to play through the verse one time before we begin to sing, so you get the idea, but you can stand up now. So I'd like to introduce Greg Custer at this time, who will give our presentation, and it's a great story about Neill James. And Greg, welcome.
Well, good afternoon. I want to say thanks for this opportunity to expand our understanding of what a remarkable community is that all of us call home. I've spoken in this building on many, many Sundays, but interestingly, the chairs have always been turned around, and I've been standing back on that stage there, and as recently as a month ago, I did a show called I Hate Hamlet, and I hear the fellow who played Hamlet was really quite good in that production. Anyway, I want to express a joy, and that is that I'm here with my partner, Roseanne, who has played such an important role in my life in a difficult transition. She's accepted me with grace and understanding, and I'm so grateful for having you in my life. I am a member of the Lake Chapala Society, and about a year ago, we started celebrating in a very active way the life of one remarkable woman, Neill James. And I'd like to acknowledge the work of Tony Burton. And if some of you may know his significant work, he is the author who spent many years living here, and he's given us about 10 books about living in Lakeside and other topics about the history of Mexico. He's an Oxford-trained geographer, and one of his most important books is shown here, Foreign Footprints in Ajijic. And if you were going to read any book about the history of Ajijic, especially the 20th century and the waves of immigrants who moved here to make this community what it is today, it's a fascinating, fascinating read. So today we're here to talk about Neill James, and the legacy of one woman drapes the village of Ajijic and the Lake Chapala Society that in ways that somewhat shroud and soften and blur how we interpret and celebrate the remarkable life of Miss Neill James. Her 50 years living in Ajijic, this is from 1943 until 1994, left impacts that are celebrated and honored by the Lake Chapala Society and community members with lasting memories of her remarkable life. Is there anyone here who knew Neill James before she passed in 1994? Well, there are many people in the village who do have lasting memories and who are very grateful that we are celebrating her remarkable 50 years in the village. Now, separating fact from fiction about Neill James can be somewhat complicated. In fact, if you Google Neill James, you're very likely to find some legacy information that's just not true. Some of these things include that she grew up as a wealthy on a wealthy cotton plantation in Mississippi. Not true. That she knew D.H. Lawrence and Ernest Hemingway and Amelia Earhart. That she graduated from the University of Chicago and that she was the founder of the Lake Chapala Society. None of that information is true. And thankfully, we have people like Tony Burton who have really set the record straight about her remarkable life. She was born in 1895 in Mississippi. And James studied stenography at the Industrial Institute and College for the Education of White Women. That was the name of the school. Later became Mississippi State College for Women, and today is known as the W in Columbus, Mississippi. Anyone from Mississippi here who might know of this institution? Okay. She graduated in 1918 and with a degree in stenography. And James then became a secretary at the War Department in Washington, D.C. And by the way, Miss James is still honored to this day. The W, the University of Mississippi, still has a $20,000 a year scholarship that they give to 4 creative writing students each year. And this was created by her sister Jane back in the early 2000s, and it continues to this day. So you have a college in the United States that is really celebrating and telling the story of Neill James in important ways. Over the next decade after she started with the War Department, she traveled extensively. She was traveling from Hawaii to Japan, China, Korea, India, France, Costa Rica, and New Zealand. And in 1931, she settled in Hawaii to work at the Institute for Pacific Relations. 3 years later, she left to travel once again in Asia and circled the world, returning via the Trans-Siberian Railroad and Europe. She then began travel writing, which was quite a remarkable switch in her life. She had never published works before, but somehow she ended up with Charles Scribner's and Sons as her publisher. Scribner's and Sons was one of the biggest publishers in the 1930s, and her editor was a man named Maxwell Perkins. And Maxwell Perkins was also editing Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald and Tom Wolfe. So she was in a very important stable of writers, which are a testament to her ability to start from nothing in terms of a travel writing and build a career that caught the attention of one of the big publishing houses in New York. So prior to visiting Mexico, James had published 3 travel books, and they were all under the title of The Petticoat Vagabond. So she's a single woman traveling the world and relating these exotic stories about places that very few people, certainly Americans, had the chance to experience in the 1930s. And she wrote 3 travel books, one of them called Among the Nomads in 1939, another book called Up and Down the World, 1937, and finally in 1942 she wrote a book called Up and Down Eastern Asia, and this is when she spent time with the Ainu Indians in northern Japan, who are Caucasian Japanese. She also illustrated a children's book called The White Reindeer in 1940. Her first ever travel to Mexico came in the year 1942 and included weeks spent with the impoverished indigenous Otomi people. This is an indigenous culture north of Mexico City who is living in almost Neolithic conditions. And Neill spent several weeks there. She then traveled to many different parts of the country, from the capital cities to impoverished rural mountain villages, from Acapulco to Chiapas, spent several weeks in Guatemala. And I'd like to read you a quote that comes from her book, Dust on My Heart. It says the following: I am by instinct a global vagabond. I cannot rest from travel. Glamour of the unknown has lured me thrice and down and around the world. Alone, I have shared the home of exotic peoples in extreme latitudes, longitudes, and altitudes. I have tented on Arctic snow beneath the northern lights with fur-clad Laplanders who follow the reindeer, have supped with gentle Fiji Islanders and tattooed Morai, and have breakfast on seaweed in the grass huts of the hairy Ainu. I have worshipped in a Malay snake temple at sea level and joined Buddhists at prayer in lofty Fujiyama. Restrictions imposed by a world at war foresighted my horizons, guiding my eager footsteps south to Mexico. This is how she begins her last book, and the one that is perhaps most connected to Ajijic, called Dust on My Heart. And we'll be talking about this. So Neill James is in Mexico in 1942, her first trip here. She spoke no Spanish, and this is when disaster struck. Neill James, while she was in Mexico City, connected with an alpine group that was climbing to the top of the volcano called Popocatépetl, which is right outside of Mexico City, almost 18,000 feet tall. Now, Neill James had already climbed Mount Fuji. She had been to Mount Rainier when she was living in Washington, so this was nothing unusual to her. And if we could bring up the slide here, I'd like to show a couple pictures. Because one of the pictures, if we go back, please. Yes, the picture on the right is actually Neill James standing in the caldera of Popocatépetl volcano, which was not active at that time. So after she did this climb, she was coming down the mountain, she fell and started tumbling down the side of the mountain. She was almost killed, saved by some hikers down below who stopped her fall. This resulted in her being taken to a Mexico City hospital where she spent months in recovery from her injuries. This is her first incident with a volcano in Mexico. While she's recovering, she learns of a phenomena that happened on the other side of the lake in the state of Michoacan, where in a farmer's field one day, the earth opened up and a volcano was born from nothing. This attracted scientists from all over the world because they could observe the birth of a volcano. This volcano eventually grew from nothing to over 500 meters high, and it covered an entire village with lava. Of course, as the lava approached the altar of the Spanish church in this village, it miraculously stopped. So Neill James said, I've got to go see this. And on crutches, still recovering from her first incident, she goes to Paricutin. She's in a shelter at night watching the pyrotechnics when the shelter collapses on top of her. She is almost killed and ends up very difficultly getting out of that incident with horseback, buses, cars involved, and finally goes back to Mexico City to recover once again from her injuries from a volcano. Someone tells her at that point, okay, no more volcanoes for you. And you need to go to a place that has great weather, thermal waters, and the chance to use the waters of a lake. So in September of 1942, Neill James ends up here. And this is the beginning of a life that at age 48 started her remarkable 50 years living here. The book that was generated from this is called Dust on My Heart. And I'd like to read you just another quote. This book talks about her travels around Mexico, her incidents with these volcanoes, and the last 2 chapters are about living in Ajijic. This was published in 1946. And Neill James has this to say about Ajijic, quote, Ajijic is a place of humor without logic. A witchcraft humor where lights go on and off, where church bells ring for no apparent reason, where definitions can suddenly fly apart like a giant castillo with all of its figures shooting off in the air. Devils of fancy dwell in the village, in the earth, in the lake water, in the air, and daily, hourly, with secret instances and delights. Scattered handfuls of antics like cascades of laughing crystals over the rooftops. Edges become blurred, centers vanish into vacuum. Straight lines are fluid, poise invariably lists into tumult, and the conclusions are hysterical. Shadow is more important than object, which forms it. The music, the patterns, slides into offbeat rhythms, an out-of-focus photograph. Does that resonate with anyone here? Something about church bells going off at all hours. So the book that she wrote was published in 1946. And interestingly, this is the last book that she ever wrote. As suddenly as her career started as a writer, she stopped. Why did that happen? We don't really know. There are many theories of that. But one of them is that Neill James was, in fact, using her book notoriety as a cover for espionage work that she was doing by visiting geopolitically sensitive parts of the world, especially leading up to World War II. And it could be that after World War II, Scribner said, we don't have a need for you anymore, and we also don't need to write books about exotic places around the world, because after the war, people were able to travel, and there was not a lot of interest in going to exotic lands coming out of that global conflict. The final 2 chapters of Dust on My Heart describe her first impressions of Ajijic and how she learned to appreciate the idiosyncrasies of Pueblo life. James writes of her adopted country, quote, Mexico is mankind's super paradise. The proud, beautiful Indian Republic possesses the charm of the Occident and the mysteries of the Orient, enhanced by a spirit of mañana which solaces the procrastinator. Unquote. She would go on to build a house in Ajijic in the 1940s, and her estate would grow over time to become the Quinta Sin Sunsan, which is today the home of the Lake Chapala Society. How many of you are members of Lake Chapala Society? Show of hands? Ah, thank you. Thank you for your support. It's very, very, very important. The pictures shown here, this is actually the entrance to LCS. This was taken in the 1950s. And next time you go here, we don't have the herds of sheep coming in front anymore. But next time you go here, notice this arch over the entrance. The arch reads Quinta Sin Sunsan, which is the name that she gave to her home as she expanded to eventually control about 5,000 square meters of lakefront. And on the left is a painting of what the lake looked like back in the 1940s. So from the 1940s on, James started several new businesses in town. They were all kind of tourist-related ventures. First of all, renting and flipping village homes, clothing industry, which we'll talk about in a moment, and also running her own store, all of which remained active until the 1970s. And if you go to the next one, there's a flyer that depicts how Neill James promoted her business, which was run from her home, which is right at the center of the Lake Chapala Society. Over the years, she tried all manner of potential lucrative, but ultimately short-lived ventures, ranging from beekeeping and selling honey to looking for buried treasure. Neill James had about 14 different houses she owned, and at each of those properties, she would be out with a shovel and metal detectors looking for gold in these different properties. She never found anything. She was extremely devoted to helping find employment for village women. And James started a silk industry in Ajijic. You have a picture here of the silk and a young woman with the cocoons, two pictures actually. These women, by the way, very likely still live in Ajijic and were working for Neill James. Neill realized that if she could bring mulberry trees here, which she did, trees from Uruapan over in Michoacan, and she planted mulberry trees throughout LCS and in adjoining properties so that they would support silkworms. And before long, Ajijic had a thriving silk production business that was housed in the LCS library. Next time you walk into the library, there's a sign that says Casa Seda Looms, House of the Silk Looms. And that's where Neill James ran a very successful business for nearly 20 years. James employed local women to weave delicate silk thread into fine silk clothing. Precisely when she introduced the silk industry is unclear. We think it's in the 1950s, and it was certainly in full flow by 1962. James is best remembered today for her many positive contributions to the health and education of her adopted community, and especially youth literacy and artistic development. Having helped educate the children of her domestic helpers from the very beginning, James broadened her scope at about 1954 to open the area's first Biblioteca Pública, the very first libraries in the village, principally aimed at serving the needs of local children. This, by the way, continues to this day in different locations as the Wilkes Education Center, many of you have been to, in the village that is run by the Lake Chapala Society. The first library was a room donated for the purpose on Ocampo, which is very near, if you've ever been to Merendero restaurant. It was right next door to Merendero restaurant. And James persuaded the municipio to part with funds for books and arranged for a very important assistant, Adelita Aldana Padilla, to oversee its activities. This is in 1954. As their reward for reading and studying, students were offered the incentive of free art supplies and classes. So Neill James was not an artist, but a friend of hers said, why don't you bring out some pencils, watercolors, and let the kids kind of draw and see what happens? Well, some remarkable things happened. This humble beginning led, after many twists and turns, to the justly praised children's art program now run by Lake Chapala Society. Each Saturday this class happens, and if you're in the village on a Saturdays at 10:30 in the morning, kids assemble, and in many cases you will have legacy artists coming back to help teach the kids as they were taught in the 1950s and 60s about art. Now, most of the kids in this program do not have exceptional talent, but a few did, and James raised funds to send the most talented of the young art students to study in San Miguel de Allende and Guadalajara. And these early 1950s and 1980s students are today the backbone of Ajijic's thriving artist community, the legacy artists of Ajijic. And here you have a picture of two that I know you are familiar with, Javier Zaragoza, we'll talk about him in a moment, and Jesus Lopez Vega, two early students. So after her retirement in 1974, the wonderful gardens of Quinta Sinsunsan were no longer open to the public. However, in 1977, James agreed that the grounds could be open every Sunday afternoon as an art garden for new artist groups, including painters and theatrical performances. And the Young Painters of Ajijic was a group that was started with her support in the 1970s. In 1983, James offered to let the Lake Chapala Society use part of the Quinta Sin Sunsan property rent-free for 5 years, provided it took over running of the Ajijic's Children's Library, which was located there in the office of LCS. That's where the Children's Library was in the 1980s. The Lake Chapala Society subsequently acquired legal title to the property in exchange for looking after Neill James in her final years. James died on Saturday, October 8th, 1994, only 3 months shy of her 100th birthday. Miss James' legacy lives on today in a triad of programs that still exist today thanks to an army of volunteers and dedicated employees. James' commitment to youth development is at the core of LCS's Spanish language library, the Wilk Center, the Children's Art Program, and very importantly, an ongoing student scholarship program for deserving Ajijic youth. At this day, we have over 40 kids who are receiving scholarships for university education thanks to funds donated to LCS for student aid. So literacy, creative development, and financial support are all connected thanks to Neill James starting a program in the 1950s that 70 years later is still here, and we should all be very proud of that. As we all enjoy, and we also all enjoy the magnificent Quinta Sin Sunsan. And of course, we have to pause to recognize the remarkable painter, Javier Zaragoza. And one of the reasons I wanted to come speak here, ladies and gentlemen, is because one of Javier's most noted and remarkable works adorns the wall to my left. So Javier was a student, he still lives in Ajijic. He was a student of Neill James in the 1950s, and she sent him to study in San Miguel de Allende. He went on to live in the United States, working in the billboard industry and working at Warner Brothers, doing studio backdrops. Came back to Ajijic in the year 2000, opened a gallery, and until very recently was extremely involved in the children's art program. And he has this to say, quote, "Neill worked hard to sell our paintings, and the small incomes from my art made me feel that my life had value, that I had value. She changed Ajijic. The art and cultural education she provided the children, her library, and her teaching changed our awareness. We learned to think for ourselves while being awakened to a broader world. Neill James had a heart for helping. Everyone she touched was changed by her actions. The community of fine artists who enjoy and live and work Lakeside are a tribute to Neill James' wise intervention." So, giving her amazing accomplishments and legacy she left in Ajijic and Lake Chapala Society, we salute today the life of Neill James, one of the most truly colorful, memorable, and enterprising characters ever to have lived in the Lake Chapala area. And one final quote from the last paragraph of her last book, which is Dust on My Heart. And again, I encourage you to check this out at the LCS library. And this is what she said, quote, "My projected 6-month Mexican jaunt, by force of circumstances, stretched nearly to 4 years. Now that my fractures are practically healed, I can walk well enough once again, and my book is finished, there is no real excuse for remaining in this private little paradise. I must be on the move. But I shall miss the children knocking at my door and asking sweetly, 'Señorita, did you bring dulces for us?' And the beggar who knocked so imperiously and asked for a centavo, and the woman bringing a freshly laid egg, just one, for sale. Many a time they have interrupted my train of thought, but they are a part of village life, and I remember them with pleasure akin to sadness. There's dust on my heart." And Neill James' grave is at the LCS campus. It's located immediately connected to her home, and I really recommend you stop and pay homage to her next time you're there. And her giving spirit is also found in the hearts of those whose lives she helped transform. Thank you very much.
Well, I certainly learned some things today. Thank you, Craig. So our closing hymn is Soon the Day Will Arrive. Please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing. And again, Wiley will play through the verse before we sing. And as we sing this song, let's give thanks to Neill James for holding the vision of a better world, especially for the children of Ajijic. I'd like to invite Greg up again for some closing words.
Just a final thought. Remember that Neill James moved here at age 48, and she spent the next 4 decades. She found the inspiration, the energy, and the commitment to make lasting changes for the betterment of women and youth in Ajijic. At age 48, she started that. And what was it about Ajijic that she found so irresistible? After living here for only 5 years, she expressed its appeal. My final quote of the day, quote, "Perhaps the real charm of the place lies in the people themselves, who treat you in a friendly spirit and accept you as who you are, or as who you've always imagined yourself. Be it a Russian princess, a titled Englishman, a baroness, a psychiatrist, a great painter, or simply a writer. No one checks your story."
Okay, let's extinguish our chalice with these words which we read together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with all the world. So our worship is over, but our service begins. Go in peace and with a purpose. But before we leave, let's enjoy this postlude in silence.
You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other, and lead with love. Lift up your eyes, don't you despair. Look up ahead, the path is there. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. I know you're scared, and I'm scared too, but here I am right next to you. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. And lead with love. And lead with love.